Okay, this one's gonna be a doozy. Can you beat Valheim with no map and no portals? It's now time to colonize the plains. My small farm on the borders was alright, but not to the scope we need. Around here in the middle of the plains, the southwest and northwest coasts are quite close, creating a natural bottleneck area. This will be perfect for a base. I flatten the area out and surround it with terrain walls, including a paddock for locks. I build a warehouse, fill it with chests, and proceed to plant bushels of flax and barley. The plains is definitely the most farm simulator biome in the game, and honestly I really like it. Planting, milling, taming, and breeding huge cow lizards, it's honestly great. And with the swamp so close, it gives me something to do while the crops grow. The cycle of mining iron, then harvesting and replanting, and then back to iron farming is honestly super chill and easy on the brain. It also helps that I'm significantly stronger now while the crips have stayed just the same. A few hours of this and before you know it, I'm laden with scrap iron and working with crop yields that are massive. I decide to take a break, but not before corralling 2 loxes and beginning the taming process. Sometimes they can be a handful to move, but once it's done, I'm feeling way better about it. Harvest, plant, mine, breed, harvest, plant, mine, breed, again and again, repeat, harvest, plant, mine, breed. Starting to feel like I'm living the life of an actual medieval peasant. Next thing you know, I have a massive haul that is ready to be processed. Again, playing without a portal sucks, but there is just something so satisfying about traveling back to base laden with a bunch of materials. Is it worth not having portals? Difficult to say, but I'm trying to appreciate it while it lasts. After a long but uneventful journey home, I rest, for tomorrow is going to be a lot of busy work. It takes multiple in-game days to process all of these materials. Between the spinning wheel and the flax, the windmill and the barley, the iron, the black metal, and the massive amount of coal needed to keep everything going, I'm struggling to keep up, but it gives me exactly what I need. By the time all is said and done, I've got fully upgraded padded armor, black metal weapons, and a shield, a bunch of bread and barley flour, and 2 beautiful lock saddles. I get back into my ship and sail, but not towards the plains, but rather to a nearby rock as close to the shore of my island as I can get. I then run all the way back to the plains because I want to raise my locks on my island close by my base. I saddle up my locks and ride the first one all the way across the meadows, through the forest, and back towards my boat. Get the locks above your boat, drive him into the boat, harpoon him for good measure, and sail to your island paradise. First locks down. I then repeat the process over again. And to show you how slow the riding skill is to level, after doing all of that, with the rested buff most of the time, my riding skill was 12. Not a very fast skill at all. The nice thing about saddled animals is that it is very easy to get them to breed. You just simply put them close together, then sit back and feel the love tonight. Before you know it, I had a couple of calves and they were all growing up. In terms of progression, I had accomplished pretty much everything I needed in the plains, except harvested a decent amount of lox meat for pies and gathering enough totems to summon Yagluth. And also find Yagluth. Then again, there is technically another armor set available in the plains, so I decide I may as well go back to the plains and spend some time there hunting lox and seeing how I fared against Vials, the new plains enemy that only spawns during the night. During the night shift, I end up being hunted, which is easily my least favorite invasion type. But it kind of worked out in my favor, as there was a nearby Vial who decided that he wanted to get in on the fun. By the time the dust had settled, he was basically one shot and I got an easy first kill. I then spent a bit more time doing one last sweep of the area, gathering large amounts of resources and materials before loading up my boat and heading back to home base. After another day of processing those materials, it was time to begin my hunt for Yagluth. The biggest decision I had tired of teaching and instead opted into running in and stealing their magic dolls before bravely booking it out of there. That in and of itself is a life lesson those students will never forget. With this continent explored and properly crossed off as a place of interest, I sailed back, eager to craft the long-awaited Fenris armor. Its movement boost will be a godsend, as it's evident that I still have a lot of running to do. It ended up taking me over an hour to sell back. Rather than stopping here and running back like I had done during swamp progression, I wanted to sail around and directly to my base, as I had picked up a lot of stuff exploring those two different continents. I wanted to sail south around this point. The problem is that this area is closely set by another island, and there are a bunch of rocks in the water. It was nighttime by this point, and the wind was in my face the whole time, so I disembarked, found a nearby broken down house, spent 5 minutes making it sleepable while fighting off the literal forces of nature. Eventually, I fell asleep, awoke the next day only to find that the wind was still in my face and motor was still on cooldown, and spent a nice, dandy time rowing against the wind northwards towards my beloved home. I crafted the Fenris armor, and wow, does this set look good. For fashion points, add the black linen cloak for extra swag. I ended up packing up the materials for the ship and casting off from here again. It's just so much faster to do it this way. I continued to sail east past the Hilder continent. The next continent I saw appeared to be quite large, with the north one having a large bay-like area, while the south one was a bunch of black forest. I landed on the point of the north continent and followed the coastline along the bay. It was here I actually ran into a sealed tower. Pretty cool, but not my goal. I continued to follow the coast and ran into a river that interrupted the flow of the coastline and flowed east. I swam across it and kept following the beach around the bay. At around this point here, it turns from plains to black forest, and it was here that I found a complete game changer. I swear the Plains Vegvisser is the hardest one to find of them all. Probably because every other biome has some form of a dungeon where they tend to be quite common. I saw where it turned me and ran in that direction. I ran through black forest, meadows, plains, swamps, black forest again, meadows again. This was a long continent. And as I ran, I felt like the continent continued to veer more to the west, while the initial direction had been more northwest. Still, I continued to run. Eventually, the continent began to turn south again, and I knew that Yagluth was not to be found here. I returned to the stone, taking more time to line the direction up with the tree in the sky. Yagluth was going to be somewhere there. Knowing how long that continent went on, I figured the best course of action was to sail through the river and sail up the east coast. I tried sailing through the river that cut east through the continent, and to my surprise, while it got narrow, it actually worked. Breaking through to the other side of the continent, I continued to follow the coast east, waiting for my opportunity to turn northwest. At the far east end, I was pleasantly surprised to see my first mistlands, a larger section on the south continent, and just a few islands on the east side of this long continent. As it turned north, there was a small dwarf fortress here, surrounded by a few patches of mist. The Mistlands area was small, but it did appear to have some resources. A perfect place to start, as it's small enough to look like it may not spawn enemies. I sail past that area, making a note of where it is, and continue to sail northwest along the eastern edge of the long continent. There was also a continent to the right, but it looked to be too far east based on the direction the Vegvisser had pointed. But we are going northwest. I decide that the best course of action will be to simply scan the coast of this continent to the right. With how the directions are going, I'm guessing Yagluth would most likely line up with a continent northwest of this one, unless it happens to be super long. I continue sailing until I see the continent on the right continue to shrink into a small land bridge that opens up into another giant landmass. I decide that this is the place to dock and look on foot. I build a small hut, rest until morning, and then continue my search along the western coastline. Based on how I'm positioned under the tree, I really am starting to feel like I'm close. I eventually come across a river that cuts across west to east. On the other side of the river, along the coastline, the biome turns into mountain, but everything over here on the east side is still plains. I decide to follow the river. For those of you familiar with Yagluth, his summoning area is covered by a large giant hand, similar in size to the iconic plain stones, but a curved, more noticeable shape. The silhouette in the horizon is exactly what I'm looking for. Tell me if you noticed it too. The recording didn't capture it as well due to the rain, but from certain angles in the camera you can notice it. I take out my hoe and mark the ground. Just to ensure if I'm wrong, I am able to accurately pick up where I left off. I swim across the river, maneuver my way between a village and a tar pit. I see the hand. To say I'm impressed with my intuition in this circumstance is an understatement. It's like those videos of fat guys doing perfect cartwheels, but there is a reason to the madness. You see, it may surprise you to hear this, but at this point in the playthrough, I have been playing for over 130 f***ing hours. The reality is that you get really good at knowing where you are at, and you get really good at mapping out the land masses around you just by being there and doing things over and over and over again. There is no map to draw your eyes away from the game. You have to look at the game. And when you are looking at the game constantly, you get decently good at looking at the game. Does that make sense? With enough repetition, you too can gain this sixth sense in almost any game, I would imagine. And in Valheim, the big stationary tree really helps. Like seriously, it's a map in and of itself. I wish I had understood this before my Elder Search. Let this be a lesson to all of you guys and girls out there. With dedication and repetition, even idiots like myself can learn to do things okay. Will those skills translate over to the Mistlands? I don't want to think about that right now. Let me just revel in my victory. Now, you may be wondering, what now? Do I travel back to the base and prepare for my battle with Yagluth? Absolutely not. After my last trip back to the base took over an hour, I knew that I needed to bring enough gear to take him out as soon as I found him. I didn't know how much farther away from the base this search would take me, so I decided to bring my battle gear with me. Padded armor, meads, the works. We're taking this crippled god out right now. I build a small shelter, build a bed and a chest for my Fenris armor and some extra food as a backup, place down the totems, pop my fire-resistant mead, and make it rain. Yagluth's mechanics are very simple. When he raises his right hand, he summons meteors that pommel your location. You can use the pillars to block them, although they will destroy the pillars. When he raises his left hand, he slams the ground, dealing huge damage and a persistent fire dot. If you can dodge the initial hit, the dot damage from the fire is still punishing, but survivable if you have fire-resistant meats. Also, 2 health food items really help here, as health items tend to have more health regeneration. With those extra buffs that allow you to tank the fire damage, it gives you many windows to just lay into him. Just don't get too carried away. Be mindful of your health and bring health potions. If you need to regenerate health, LOSing him and kiting him around the pillars can get him chasing you, but not doing any actual abilities. If you get too far away, he can shoot a beam of fire at you, which can be surprisingly hard to dodge as he can turn while casting it, and does so rapidly. Stay close to him and you'll outrun his spinning. Play around these mechanics, find your windows to lay into him with the Frostner, and eventually he'll go down. Victorious, I head back to my boat with his head and begin the long journey home. To test my prowess, I decide to take the northern way back rather than backpedaling all the way home. The fog clears up as I leave the plains, leading to clear skies and the wind at my tail. I've never taken this northern route before, but after successfully navigating my way to Yagluth, I'm feeling myself a bit, so I take a chance. I still have to go northwest because this super long initial continent is still blocking my way south, like seriously. It's a freaking long continent. But eventually I do get around it, and then slightly alter my course. I constantly am looking at the tree as a gauge for where I'm going. I expect to run into maybe 1 or 2 small continents or just a few islands before I hit the northern part of my starter continent. I end up actually just sailing through open water the entire way, all the way home. Eventually, I see a landmass with black forest, which is what I think is on the north side of my continent. I like how it lines up with the trees above, so I decide to sail past it and then turn south following its coastline. The rocky coastlines look very familiar to me. Sure enough, I eventually sail past some structures I had made, and I knew that I had successfully navigated myself home on an entirely new path. And I, your boy, successfully conquered the plains biome with no map and no portals. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to like and subscribe. If you dislike the video, please be sure to dislike and subscribe so that you can continue to hate watch. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Peace!